Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be breaking down my 2024 SuperFlex / 2-quarterback draft strategy. Inside today's video, we'll begin by breaking down my overall strategy, and then we're going to go ahead and head on into two separate mock drafts. One mock draft on Sleeper, and the Sleeper ADP is typically a little less ambitious with the quarterback position early on. And then we're going to go ahead and do one on FantasyPros, where typically the quarterbacks come off the board a little bit quicker. But before we can get on into this SuperFlex / 2-quarterback draft strategy video, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below while you're down there. Whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. If you would like to check out my rankings, head on over to the Patreon for $7.50 a month. I got my full PPR rankings cheat sheet available on there for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So the first point we want to be discussing in the SuperFlex draft strategy video is how do you actually utilize the SuperFlex position. In a SuperFlex fantasy football league, that position needs to be a quarterback every single week. The only time a quarterback is not going to be my super flex is if something goes completely wrong, right? If everyone gets hurt, there's no one available on the waiver wire. That is virtually the only scenario in which I am not rolling out two quarterbacks every single week. And the fact that you need to be starting two quarterbacks every single week is going to heavily inflate the value of the quarterback position. In your typical one quarterback redraft league, you could wait until the end of the draft and go with a combo of two quarterbacks and be perfectly fine switching back and forth between those guys all year long. Or maybe you go ahead and find a guy off the waiver wire that ends up being a league winner. So the quarterback position is kind of in the back of minds for many fantasy football players as they are doing their drafts. Whereas in a SuperFlex, a 2-quarterback league, the quarterback needs to be on the forefront of your mind, and you can't get lost feeling like you found some crazy value at pick number 8 with this player that would typically go inside of the top 3, when in reality, a lot of the times, if you pass up on that quarterback position, you are potentially going to pay a huge price by getting kind of pushed out of the quarterback position, especially with a top 10 quarterback. So while you don't have to draft a quarterback in the first or the second round, I think a great rule of thumb is to go into your draft thinking, I want to get two quarterbacks within the first 4 rounds. And honestly, the rule of thumb that I mostly abide by is by getting two quarterbacks through the first 3 rounds. Now, you don't have to go back to back in round 1 and round number 2. You could do round 1, round 3, round 2, round 3, whatever way you want to do it. I am putting heavy emphasis on the quarterback position. It is also important to understand that once you get locked out at the quarterback position, once you're looking at guys like Stafford, Cousins, Rodgers, Baker, Geno, those kind of quarterbacks, you have to understand that those guys are, in a way, kind of one in the same. Now, unless one of those guys ends up going crazy and being a top 5 quarterback, they're all going to have multiple top 12 performances, and they are very similar to each other. So if you're able to wait an additional round, take out another player instead, and then come back in the next round and draft a quarterback, that is definitely something that I like to do. So it's very important to just understand from what I've been saying that the quarterback position needs to be in the front of your mind the whole entire draft. The second point to make here is that in SuperFlex and 2-quarterback leagues, the tight end to me is the least important position. Now, would it be great to have Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta or Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, whichever tight end you want to give the Suka Lamink special to? Yeah, it would be fucking great. But I don't think that they are very much a priority in super flex drafts. I am definitely looking to build out a solid running back and wide receiver core, and obviously having two solid quarterbacks before I really consider a tight end. Now, again, this isn't just a straight up blanket statement. Completely avoid the tight end position, because if a tight end falls to you and you feel comfortable taking them, then go right ahead. But I also wanted to make it known that, in my opinion, in Superflex 2 quarterback drafts, the tight end position is the least valuable compared to any other league setup. Also important to note that even in 10 or 8 team leagues, where normally I am banging the drum for you guys to take that elite tight end early on, get that tight end positional advantage, because everyone's team is going to be stacked in an 8 or a 10 team league, even in those smaller super flex leagues, I'm not putting it at the top of my mind, right? I'm not making it a priority entering into the draft thinking I need to get an elite tight end in a super flex league. So hopefully that breakdown helped you guys understand the kind of things that I'm looking for in a super flex or 2 quarterback draft. They are basically the same. The only difference is in 2 quarterback leagues, you obviously cannot start a running back, wide receiver, or a tight end as your super flex. But the main point, as you guys have gotten through this explanation, is that you want to have 2 quarterbacks going, regardless of if it's a 2 quarterback league or a super flex league. So first, we're going to go ahead and do our mock draft on FantasyPros. Like I said off the start of today's video, the FantasyPros mock draft is more than likely going to push more quarterbacks going in the first round. So depends really on your league. If you play in a super flex league you've been playing in for a couple of years, make sure you go back and look at the history and look, hey, is this a league that goes super heavy on quarterback? Is this a league that is very cautious with the quarterback position? Maybe only 5 quarterbacks in the first round? Because you guys will find there's going to be some leagues, like my home league, where 8 quarterbacks, 10 quarterbacks might go in the first round. And then there's going to be some leagues where it's a little bit less ambitious on the quarterback position. So let's get into the FantasyPros mock draft. After that super sick transition, we're over here on FantasyPros Draft Wizard. This draft is going to be a 12-team PPR draft from the 8th overall spot. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, super flex, a kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. So what you guys are going to notice the second we get into this draft is that the quarterbacks are going to be going free willy early on. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. So in this kind of a draft, you are going to be feeling 2 things. The first thing you're going to be feeling is, wow, I can get CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill at the 8th overall pick, and that is going to feel very enticing. But then you're going to feel another thing, like, ooh, maybe I'll get Lamb or Tyreek. Then you're also thinking, all right, if I don't take Kyler or Burrow, whichever quarterback you prefer in this range, I am going to potentially get buried by the time I get up to bat to swing again at the 205. And potentially, I might be in a range at the quarterback position with a Brock Purdy that I'm not necessarily enamored with drafting inside of the second round. I don't think that Brock Purdy's a bad player. I think Brock Purdy could have a similar season to last year where he's a top 8 quarterback, and I wouldn't be shocked at all about that. But also, I wouldn't love him in the second round. So I think I'm going to go with Kyler Murray. Now, if I was someone like some of the commenters that don't really like Kyler Murray, they're nervous about what they saw last year, despite the fact that he's coming off of a serious injury, and they don't think he's all that good, then sure, pass up on him, go for Tyreek, go for CD. But for me, Kyler Murray's a quarterback I think that could finish as the quarterback 1. I love the addition of Maserati Marv into this offense. I think that Kyler Murray, with his rushing upside, genuinely could be the quarterback number 1. Maybe this is a reach to some, but I'm going to go ahead and take my stand here and get my quarterback 1 in round 1. After Kyler Murray, CeeDee Lamb, Joe Burrow, Tyreek Hill, Dak Prescott, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, and Jordan Love. So you could see in the first 12 picks, 9 quarterbacks, 3 non-quarterbacks. In some leagues, this is very unrealistic. This will be too crazy, too hot on the quarterback position. But in some leagues, this might be exactly what you end up seeing. So one more quarterback comes off the board in the second round, and this leaves us with basically a no-brainer. While I do like Brock Purdy, big cock Brock, and I think a lot of people give him a lot of shit for virtually no reason, I'm going to be able to get an elite wide receiver or an elite quarterback with this second pick. Bijan or Amon-Ra. Now, if this was a league that was 3 wide receivers or 2 flexes, I would be taking Amon-Ra St. Brown every single time here. But since this is just the typical 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, the flex, the super flex, which you want to be a quarterback, I'm going to go ahead and take Bijan Robinson here, a running back who I really do believe could be the running back 1 in fantasy football. And again, I really do believe, I've talked about this a bunch, by the time you do your fantasy football draft next season, it wouldn't be a shock to me at all if he was the running back number 1 off the board, the number 1 overall pick in 2025 fantasy football drafts after Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Brock Purdy, Jonathan Taylor, Jaden Stormy Daniels, Jahmyr Gibbs, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, Kyron Williams, and Jared Goff. So there's still a bunch of great skill position players available. The Travis Etienne, Pacheco, Devon Achane, Adams, who I don't really like as much, but Adams is a solid name. Chris Olave, Drizzy Drake London, Michael Pittman Jr. I am going to take the layup and take Tua Tagovailoa, because once you take Tua Tagovailoa and you already have Kyler Murray, now you don't need to pull the trigger earlier on in the draft on your third quarterback, right? When you are investing this heavy draft capital into your first 2 quarterbacks, you are going to be perfectly fine riding with those guys every single week in your lineup. Now, the bye week does kind of matter more in a super flex league. Now, obviously, in a 1 quarterback league, if you're going to draft 2 quarterbacks and you draft 2 quarterbacks on the same bye week, that makes 0 fucking sense, because the only time that you're going to switch in a lot of scenarios is when one of your quarterbacks or main quarterback is on bye or they get hurt. So having the same bye week is a little bit crazy. In a super flex league, I definitely still wouldn't be looking to match them up on the same bye week, because you're essentially just saying, I'm going to lose week whatever, because even if you have a third quarterback, now you have to roster 4 quarterbacks, and it's very hard to get 4 quarterbacks in a 12-team league that are going to start every single week, and now you're just have so much emphasis on the quarterback position. So I do look at bye weeks a little bit more. Running back, wide receiver, I don't give a singular fuck about the bye week. It really doesn't matter, because by week 12, when these guys have their bye weeks, or week 8, even week 6, right, your whole team is going to be drastically different. So we're going to go ahead and get Tua Tagovailoa here, because then we don't have to do the dance with the Kirk Cousins, the Matthew Stafford, the Deshaun Watson. Again, is Tua Tagovailoa going to finish as like a top 5 quarterback? He could if he hit the nuts on the touchdowns. I definitely do think he could throw for the most passing yards yet again, but he just needs more touchdowns, and maybe the fact that he slimmed down a little bit adds to his rushing upside, and maybe he has a better season than some project. But in the 3rd round of a super flex league, I would be ecstatic to get Tua Tagovailoa after Tua, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Travis Etienne, Drizzy Drake London, Sam Laporta, Isaiah Pacheco, Justin Herbert, the pervert. So we are back up on the clock here. We already got Bijan. We could go for the tag team of the Dolphins with Tua and with Achane, but I'm going to go with a wide receiver at this pick. The problem here is, if I knew for sure Ayuk was a 49er, I am taking him here and not even thinking twice about it. The problem is, maybe he ends up being a Pittsburgh Steeler. As of right now, he's still a 49er. Things are pointing towards him being a 49er, but he could also end up as a Steeler. Now, he'll probably still be a fine pick if he ends up as a Pittsburgh Steeler, but it won't feel as great. Olave feels very risky, but he also feels like he has the upside to be one of the best receivers in fantasy football due to his skill set, so he would be a player that I'd be willing to select here. But if I'm being honest with you, while I do feel like my wide receiver core might be hurting a little bit if I avoid the wide receiver position here. I think I'm just going to go the double hero running back route here. Get Achane here, a guy who I think could score 30-plus points in any given week. And then after this, we are going to go hammer time. Shout out Thor, shout out MC Hammer at the wide receiver position. It is a little bit risky, but with how the wide receivers fall into the 5th, the 6th, the 7th round of these SuperFlex drafts, I really like a lot of the wide receivers in that range, and I would feel a lot more comfortable with those guys compared to the running backs that I could potentially get. Running backs available now, Walker, Stevenson, Jones, guys that are a lot more of question marks, in my opinion, compared to Achane. After Achane, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Olave, Josh Jacobs, Trevor Lawrence, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, Matthew Stafford, Rashad with 2A's White, Nico Collins, Alvin Kamara, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, James Cook. Now, the idea of stacking, I definitely think, is even better in a Superflex league, right? If you're stacking up Kyler with Marvin Harrison or Kyler with McBride, and then you got Tua and Waddle, Tua and Tyreek. I won one of my leagues last year that was a Superflex draft. I believe I had Dak and CD, and I had Tyreek and Tua Tagovailoa, obviously, which helps you out a ton. Now, though, we are in a range where we just have to go wide receiver. Now, because we already have Achane, while the Dolphins are a team where I'd be fine, I guess, starting 3 players on the same team, if they end up having a bad year, then our whole entire team is fucking nuked Fallout 4 style. So I'm going to go ahead here and get DJ Moore. I do have DJ Moore ranked ahead of Jalen Waddle. No one seems to be getting the DJ Moore fever from Hard Knocks. Now, I was a big fan of DJ Moore even before Hard Knocks. I saw what he did last year with subpar quarterback play, and I think Caleb Williams is going to be able to elevate him. Sure, there's a lot more target competition, but I think DJ Moore is like that. He's built different, and he could still easily be a top 12 wide receiver in back-to-back seasons. After DJ Moore, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Deshaun Watson, the Massage Man, Aaron Jones, Coles Cash, Kirk, Amari Cooper, Debo Samuel, and Jalen waddled away, waddle, till the very next day. Now, the question here would be, do I want to go with the safer bet or the more upside bet here? Malik Neighbors is the more upside bet. He's on a Giants team with a quarterback in Daniel Jones, who actually looked pretty solid in 2022 and looked like a steaming pile of dog shit in 2023. He was as useful as a broken condom when you're trying to nail someone that has an STD, and then you wake up the next day and your piss is burning. It's a hunk of burning love. Shout out Elvis. So Malik Neighbors is pretty risky. Devontae Smith feels a little bit safer. Now, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to look to throw a little bit more with the new offensive coordinator, and that could lead to Devontae Smith having a better season. He feels safe, but I have Neighbors ranked ahead of Devontae Smith. The rankings linked in the video description over on Patreon. I'm sticking with my guns. I'm going Malik Neighbors. To many, this might be a risky team, right? You got Kyler, short, midget. He's not good. Tua, that guy gets hurt tying his cleats. Knock on wood, we don't refer injuries. I'm a Dolphins fan. I hope he doesn't get hurt. Bijan feels pretty safe, but oh my God, Achane, DJ Moore. But I'm fine taking on this risk because, again, we're not just drafting 2 wide receivers here. We're going to draft multiple more wide receivers, and if one of these guys ends up being a bust, we're going to be able to fill our team with high upside shots. So we're going to go with Malik Neighbors here, even though a lot of people would like to go with the safer bet. Now, we do still have Trey McBride available, as well as Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, and to be honest with you, while I did kind of shit talk the tight end position early on, if you wanted to go Trey McBride here, I wouldn't hate it, but the fact that we only have 1 wide receiver up to this point does kind of push me closer to Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors deserves a lot more credit for how good he was in college, and I think Malik Neighbors could absolutely shut people up if Daniel Jones is just halfway decent, because if you watch the preseason week number 1, Malik Neighbors was 7-11. He was Waffle House. He was always open. We just need the quarterback to throw him the ball. After Malik Neighbors, Devontae Smith, Baker Mayfield, Trey McBride, Mr. Unlimited, Ramondre Stevenson, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers, James Conner, Dalton Kincaid, Tank Dell, Evan Ingram, and Kyle Pitts. So now, at tight end, we basically just have Jake Ferguson or bust. And by or bust, I mean I see the next couple of guys, besides Bowers, kind of in a very similar range. I think Bowers pretty risky, just inherently being a rookie tight end. So if I don't take Ferguson and he doesn't come back to me in the next round, I'm basically just saying fuck it to the tight end position and just taking some rando and hoping he ends up paying off again. Obviously, some of these guys aren't, like Fryermuth isn't a random who I do like, but I hope you guys get what I mean. So here, Pickens is the easiest pick to make if we knew for sure that Ayuk wasn't going to get traded there. We are operating under the assumption right now that Ayuk is going to be a 49er, so I am going to take George Pickens here. I like Christian Kirk. The fact that he's dealing with a calf injury, though, isn't necessarily the most positive thing to hear. So I'm going to go with George Pickens here. Clear wide receiver 1, assuming Ayuk doesn't get traded to the Steelers. I understand, is Mr. Unlimited Justin Fields the best quarterback option? No, but it is miles better than what we saw last season, which was Mitch Trubisky, Small Hands Pickett, and Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. So after Pickens, DeAndre Swift, Calvin Ridley, Geno Smith, Keenan Allen, David Montgomery, Christian Kirk, Zamir White, and Terry McLaurin. Now, this is the range where I would start looking for my quarterback number 3. Now, I actually really like Sam Darnold, and I think Sam Darnold is going to be a super late pick. Now, do I think that Sam Darnold is some amazing quarterback? The answer to that would be no, but I think that Sam Darnold is going to be productive in the Kevin O'Connell system. It seems like Kevin O'Connell gets the best out of the quarterbacks that he has. But I will note that him and Tua have the same bye week, so we are kind of tanking the week 6 week, only having one quarterback, which would kind of affect things. I do also like Bryce Young. His bye is week 11, but Kyler's bye is week 11. I also like Will Levis. He's bye 5. Will Levis is a guy that I liked in flashes of last season. Am I going to say that, hey, I feel fully confident Will Levis? No. But I do think Will Levis has some game. So we're going to wait on Will Levis, though. I'm going to take him in round 9. To some, that might be a reach, but he's a guy that I think could end up playing better than Tua, if I'm being honest, for fantasy, just due to his rushing upside. And if Hopkins can get healthy, I think Will Levis has some upside. And again, it's not like he's going to be in my lineups most weeks. Most weeks, it's Tua and Kyler Murray. But we are going to go wide receiver or tight end first here. Jake Ferguson might fall, though, because I do see him fall in a lot of drafts. And I have just been all over Rashee Rice. We take him in basically every single mock draft at this point. His ADP is continuing to rise, and it should rise for good reason. While I understand what the guy did was fucked up, at the end of the day in fantasy football, you know what I care about? I don't care how good of a driver Rashee Rice is. I care how many points Rashee Rice is going to put up for my fantasy team, and I don't think he's going to get suspended. And if that is the case, Rashee Rice could end up as a top 18 receiver reliably weekly, who I could fill in for Neighbors maybe early on in the season, or maybe Neighbors or Pickens, more one of them doesn't work out, and Rashee Rice is in the lineup every single week. After Rice, Raheem Mostert, then we see Chris Godwin, Najee Harris, Jaden Riley Reed, Deontay Johnson, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Mr. Clean, 49ers, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, JSN, Bears defense, Javonte, Browns, Bengals defense. So now we're going to get Levis. Now, again, to some, this might be a reach. Maybe he goes later, but I'm going to secure my quarterback number 3 because I know in my at-home league, people would be fiending to draft their third quarterback. If I can't get Will Levis, I love Sam Darnold. I'm really hoping that my friends that are in my SuperFlex draft don't watch this, but they will, because when on their page they see SuperFlex draft strategy, they're going to instantly click on it to know what I'm thinking, because I won the league last year. I know I'm a genius. Everyone already knows that. The funniest shit that happens at my drafts is my friends will just start playing the videos that I make on my laptop, and I hear myself multiple times. It is funny in a way, but it also makes me like cringe, because I don't really like hearing myself talk, despite the fact that I talk for like an hour on videos every single day. And in season, it's like an hour and 45 minutes every day that you get to hear me. So, I mean, you guys don't seem to be tired of it, but I sure am when I have to listen to myself a bunch of times, because I don't think anyone wants to hear themselves. I think everyone doesn't like listening to themselves talk. Maybe I'm crazy, but it says Will Levis could have been available 2 rounds from now. But just how I know my friends' leagues go with my friends, in my league, if Will Levis made it to the 9th round, I'd be ecstatic. After Will Levis, Roma Dunze, Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Warren, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, DeAndre Hopkins, Brian Robinson, and Xavier Worthy. Now it's time to get back on the running back train here. While I do think my wide receivers are a little bit more risky, I would like to get another piece at the running back position with a lot of upside, and that would be Tyjae Spears. Now, we already do have a Titan in Will Levis, and I don't necessarily love drafting two players on a team that on paper I just don't project to be amazing. Like, I think they could surprise, but I don't think in any world the Titans end up being like some top 8, top 10 offense. Maybe they do with the new system there, but we're going to go with Chase Brown. This is a team that could be the best offense in the National Football League. I do think that Zach Moss is the better bet to be the running back one, if I'm being blatantly honest with you guys. But based on what I've seen out of Chase Brown, he is a guy, another one of those guys that shows flashes like Will Levis, right? You've seen it. The question is, will he be able to actually do it for multiple games, right? Is he going to be able to cut himself a piece of this pie, cut himself enough of a role into this offense to where he could be productive weekly instead of just being a guy that if you're in a best ball league like on Underdog Fantasy, you magically, he comes in your lineup, has that big game, but you never really know when to start him. Hopefully he becomes more consistent. After Chase Brown, Gus Edwards, Christian Watson, Tyjae Spears, Hollywood Brown, Ladd McConkey, Trey Benson, Ezekiel Elliott, Blake Corum, Jordan Addison Ray, Cortland Sutton, Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas Jr., Jameson Williams, and Jerome Ford F-150. We still don't have a tight end. If Jake Ferguson was still available, I would take him every single time. I don't necessarily think Jake Ferguson would be available at this point, so I think we're just going to pass him up. And hopefully the computer takes him, and then we would just get our tight end later. Now, if this was a real draft, and we're saying, oh, this is as realistic as it gets, Jake Ferguson is available in round 11, I would have some pre-cum slide in downstairs for me, because I would be ecstatic to get Ferguson. I love Ferguson. I've said ecstatic multiple times in this video. So we're going to try to take it out of the vocab. Running back, I like Chuba Hubbard. The fact that he's dealing with an injury, and we don't really know exactly what it is. I know it's a knee injury, but they haven't been the most telling about what actually happened. We're going to go with upside here, and we're just going to shoot for the moon, and that's Romeo Doubs. Now, Romeo Doubs can end up being the wide receiver 4 in terms of targets on this team. I can also see him being the wide receiver 1. It seems like Jordan Love just loves sucking this guy dry when he talks about him. He even built, on a podcast, the Dream Offense, and he included Romeo Doubs in there with a bunch of guys from different teams. So I think Romeo Doubs is a guy that's a huge touchdown threat and weekly has a lot of upside due to that. And then we're going to go with Rico Dowdle. You might just get hit with the Rico McMillie, who could end up being the lead back on the Dallas Cowboys, because Zeke honestly doesn't look the best from everything that I have seen. And then we are going to go with a tight end, kicker, and a defense. So we're going to go ahead and go with Freiermuth. While I understand that Arthur Smith in minds of fantasy football managers is a complete and utter bum, and I would kind of agree, he loves the tight ends. He's just like me, for real. You guys see that picture of Sydney Sweeney on Instagram? God damn, she's got the dumper now. That's what people are saying. And that just sounds so cringe. So I'm sorry if anyone, and saying the word cringe is also kind of cringe, but people are saying that. I just said that as a joke, but she kind of does have one now. But Pat Freiermuth, real point of today's video. Shout out to my wife. Not my actual wife. She's my fiance right now, but will be my wife. She is the number 1 woman in my heart. Not Sydney Sweeney, of course, but Pat Freiermuth. And, oh, man. Didn't have a good season last year. Looked positive. Looked great in 2022. I think Arthur Smith might be able to unlock him. Now, saying Arthur Smith can unlock anyone sounds crazy, but he was a better offensive coordinator than a head coach. So I think with the love of tight ends from Mr. Arthur Smith, I'm just going to take Freiermuth. I don't really want Goddard, if I'm being honest with you. What am I getting out of him? I don't think much. So after Freiermuth, Marshawn Lloyd, Elijah Mitchell, Roshan Johnson, Bo Nix, Justin Tucker, Cowboys, Jerry Jeudy, Buck Kerr. We're going to go ahead and get a kicker first, and then our defense. Let's take the highest ranked guy available, Brandon Aubrey. And then for defense, you don't want to draft the best defense technically on paper. You want to draft a defense that's playing up against a not-so-hot offense in week number 1. And then after that, you are going to just change your defense every single week depending on the matchup. The Steelers play up against the Falcons. While I actually think the Falcons are going to be a solid team, I think in week number 1, coming out the gate, first week of Kirk Cousins, maybe the chemistry isn't at 100 overall there, right? It's like fucking FIFA when you have to play Ultimate Team and you have to get the chemistry out. Maybe their chemistry isn't A1 like the steak sauce. And early on, they struggle a little bit. and that would be good enough because the Steelers defense is really good regardless of the matchup. So our quarterback is Kyler, our running backs are Bijan and Devon Achane, our wide receivers are DJ Moore, Malik Neighbors, our tight end is Freiermuth, our flex is George Pickens, our super flex is Tua Tagovailoa. Our bench is comprised of Will Levis, Rashee Rice, Chase Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Rico Dowdle. Our defense is the Steelers, and our kicker is Brandon Aubrey. So if this was my at-home league, and I drafted this team with how many quarterbacks went early, I would be walking out of there thinking I'm taking this whole thing down. Now, obviously, waiver wire pickups are important. You don't just win your whole league in the draft. The waivers are very important. They're crucial. Guys like Puka, Kyron Williams, there's league winners on the waivers that you're going to be able to find. There are defenses you need to pick up, kickers you need to pick up. There are changes you need to make, right? Maybe, just maybe, did the Patriots quarterback Drake May come off the board? Draco May? He did, right? But maybe Drake May doesn't get drafted in your league. You pick up Drake May off the waiver wire. Now he's starting for the Patriots. He's looking great. Boom, you win your league straight up off the waiver wire. So the waiver wire is important, but I would be so excited if I drafted this team. Let me know what you guys think about this team in the comment section. Now we're going to hop, skip, and jump our way to Sleeper to do a draft where the quarterbacks aren't as abundant in the first round. Like, I doubt we're going to end up seeing just 3 non-quarterbacks go in the first round. All right, so now we're over here on Sleeper. Same settings, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex, super flex, kicker, defense, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bench spots. So let's get on into this mock draft. Again, things are going to be a little less quarterback heavy on there. McCaffrey goes 101. Possible? Yes, I think a quarterback should go 101 basically every single time. Josh Allen isn't actually my quarterback 1. My quarterback 1 is Jalen Hurts. It's up to debate. The only reason why is I just feel like Josh Allen isn't going to get 15 rushing touchdowns again. And while I think the tush push might be less effective, without Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce, being the center, I still think it's going to end up being a pretty key piece on the goal line. And I think that Jalen Hurts is going to end up as the quarterback 1. Again, that's just a hunch, though. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those quarterbacks early on. So McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hill, Lamb, Jackson, Jefferson, Stroud, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, the first 12 picks. So only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks this time. I think we had 9 in the last draft. The second round is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs, Robinson, Burrow, Richardson, A.J. Brown, Dak, Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Kyler Murray. So we drafted Kyler Murray at the 8th pick or the 9th pick? I think the 8th pick last time. Kyler falls to the 210 this time. So again, you have to adjust to your room. In this room, I don't feel the need to necessarily pull the trigger as early on as with my quarterback 2. Now, I know for sure if you really wanted Jordan Love, who I personally love, you would have to take him here, but we're not going to do that this time. We're going to go best player available. Best player available to me would be Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are another one of those teams that I would be fine double stacking, right? You're getting all of the rushing touchdown equity with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley here. So I would be fine doing it because they are a great team. But since we did just do a mock draft where we took Achane and Tua, let's do something a little bit different here. And let's go with Maserati Marv, my highest ranked wide receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr., in my opinion, is the kind of wide receiver that coming into the NFL just shows you on tape that this guy can do it all. This guy's going to be day one coming out the jump. Amazing. And I think he's going to do some real damage in Arizona this year. And then we kind of have more of a question. Do we go with Drizzy, Drake, London, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, Ayuk, Evans, at running back, Kyron, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry? We're going to go Kyron here. He is my highest ranked player available. I like Kyron Williams more than most because while there is blatant injury risk with him, the upside is a top 3 running back with how good I think the Rams are going to be. So I'm going to take Kyron. If you want to be a little bit safer, though, I think the wide receivers in this range are pretty risky. So I like Kyron. If you want to go with a safer running back, maybe Derrick Henry there, ETN would be a little bit safer. After Kyron, Sam Laporta, Drake London, Jordan Love, Chris Olave, Brock Purdy, Devontae Adams, ETN, Ayuk, McBride, Tua Tagovailoa, Derrick Henry, Jared Goff, Jalen waddled away, waddle to the very next day, Michael Pittman, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Caleb Williams, Mike Evans, Isaiah Pacheco, and Steph on Diggs. So looking at the quarterback position here, we are going to 100% get iced out potentially because the 4th and the 5th pick here, their 4th round pick of team 1 and the 5th round pick, it could be back-to-back quarterbacks here because they don't have a single quarterback. So if you have a preference of Herbert, Lawrence, Jaden Stormy Daniels, you would probably want to pick them here. For me, it's Jaden Daniels. Is Jaden Daniels super safe, rookie quarterback, and you have to start him in week 1, right? It's not like in your redraft league where you take Daniels, you pair him with Kirk Cousins, and no, you can play Kirk Cousins week 1, right? You don't have to throw the rookie out to the wolves, right? Whereas in this scenario, he's going out instantly. You're playing him in week number 1, whether it's 5 points, he struggles, or whether he is bending that defense over and slinging the back shots. I'm fine, though, with Jaden Daniels, and I'm going to pick him here. I love the fact that he can rush the ball. I liked what I saw in preseason, and I liked what I saw on tape at LSU. Obviously, he won the Heisman last year after Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert the pervert, and Cooper Kupp. Would have loved to get Cooper Kupp, but that's okay because we're going to get my guy, Nico Collins. Collins is another guy that people are worried about because, they bring in Stephon Diggs, and, they also have Tank Dell. But to me, I think Nico Collins is the best wide receiver on this team. And if I'm able to get the wide receiver 1 on the Texans, an offense that projects to be top 5, top 10 minimum, I'm going to take that every time in the 5th round because if he ends up as the wide receiver 1, we are going to be feasting. After Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, Malik Neighbors, Mark Andrews, Devon Achane, DJ Moore, Trevor Lawrence, touchdown Jesus himself, Dalton Kincaid, Deebo Samuel, Alvin Kamara, Matthew Stafford, James Cook, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper, Kyle Pitts, Kenneth Walker, Ron Jones, Kirk Thuggins, Joe Mixon, and Zay Flowers. Back up on the clock here. Tight ends. I do like George Kittle more than I did a couple of months ago, if I'm being honest. But he is a guy that is essentially a hero or zero. And by zero, I mean like 3-4 points. He's either going to go in there and beat the shit out of defense, right? We've seen George Kittle get in the WWE ring, right? He's going to hit the defense with the 619 Rey Mysterio, score not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns, right? Have that huge game, or he's going to score 3 fantasy points, right? And that's just kind of what you're getting with him. Now, if Ayuk was to get traded, I would be sitting here just loving Kittle, giving him the Hawk Tua special. But with Deebo, Ayuk there, and I don't know if I said Deebo or Ayuk getting traded. Obviously, the answer would be Ayuk would get traded. Then I would like him a little bit more. The running backs in this range, I like Montgomery, but again, I don't really feel like I need to take Montgomery here. Could go Ingram. If Kittle falls to us in the 7th round, I'll probably end up taking him. But now we're to go with wide receiver. We took Pickens last time, and again, if I was doing 2 SuperFlex drafts, 2 drafts in general, I would try not to take multiple of the same players in different leagues because while that could be advantageous, right? If George Pickens ends up as a top 3, top 5 wide receiver, then he could have individually won both of your leagues, right? As if one player wins the whole league for you. It is possible, but you guys get what I mean. The rest of your team also matters. Sure, but if Pickens gets hurt, then he not only shoots one team, he kills both teams, and that would hurt. Now, again, you're not getting murdered by a 6th round pick, but I hope you guys get the point. We have Nico Collins, so we're not going to go Tank Dell here. The running back's kind of man. We don't need a 3rd quarterback this early. So let's go Terry McLaurin. Get that stack with Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin's been a guy that for years has been a pretty big, not necessarily the biggest priority for me, but a guy I've drafted, and he has let me down multiple times, but maybe Jaden Daniels is really that guy, and he helps unlock him. Now we're back up again, and we are going to go with Kittle. Because at this point, the 3 versus 30 points, the upside is just so significant. Like, he is a guy that if he pops off for 20 plus points, that's such a big positional advantage at tight end, even though I did talk about at the beginning of the video, like, you don't need to draft a high upside tight end. I did that in the last video by drafting Pat Freiermuth. I didn't, go after that. I followed my own rules. But again, that's why you don't need a rule book like your Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents, right? You don't need to follow every single rule like your Young Sheldon, right? You can go ahead and do different things. Young Sheldon, by the way, actually isn't as bad as people make it out to be. I didn't like Big Bang Theory at all. I think that show's lame. But I kind of like Young Sheldon, if I'm being honest with you. I've been watching it with my fiance. It's a pretty decent show. Again, am I saying it's the best show on earth? No, it's no Sopranos, no Game of Thrones, right? No whatever show you think is the best, right? I love Entourage. That's my favorite show. But I think Sopranos is honestly better than Entourage. But you know what I mean. That has nothing to do with today's video. But George Kittle, DeAndre Swift, Evan Ingram, David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson, Christian Kirk, Jaden Riley Reed, Keenan Allen, Brock Bowers, James Conner. I almost said James Cook, but James Conner. Hollywood Brown, David Njoku, the Chief, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Najee Harris, Jake Ferguson, Roma Dunze, Zamir White, Deshaun Watson, and Tony Pollard. Now we got to get our running back too, and we're to go ahead and go with, we want to go 2 running backs in a row. This guy has 2 competent backs, so I don't know if he'll go with another running back here. So let's go receiver, then running back. Let's get Godwin this time. We took Rashee Rice last time. Godwin was pretty bad last year. Not terrible, but based on where you drafted him, you weren't obviously the happiest. But he wasn't used correctly in the slot like he has been used in his prior last couple of seasons. In his prior 3 seasons, he was used, besides last year, 70% of the time about in the slot, whereas last year he was only used about 30% of the time, and he was less successful. The team's going to look to get him in the slot this year. So I think Godwin's going to bounce back. Now we're to get a running back. Jonathan Brooks is, in my opinion, a league winner running back. This is a guy that in, say, 4 or 5 weeks, if he gets healthy, I think he's that good that he could win your league. I think the Panthers are going to surprise people, and he's going to win you your league potentially. Problem is, I won't have him for 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm already taking Kyren Williams, who is an injury question mark, right? It's like when you don't have CS source and you're playing Gary's Mod and there's a bunch of question marks everywhere. If you know, you know. Like the Riddler. I'm going to go not with Jonathan Brooks, though. We're going to go with Javonte Williams. I do have Raheem Mostert ranked a little bit higher, but I think Raheem Mostert's going to be a little bit safer of a pick with less upside, where I think Javonte Williams is a big upside play with just how Sean Payton has molded running backs. We've heard this a million times if you have watched my videos, how much I love Javonte. After Javonte, Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks, Jordan Addison-Ray, Ladd McConkey, Raheem Mostert, Deontay Johnson, Gus Edwards, Will Levis, Zach Moss, TJ Hawkinson, Keon Coleman, Jalen Warren. Then we see Austin Eckler, followed by Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Hopkins, Dalton Schultz, Tajay Spears, Christian Watson, JSN, and Pat Freiermuth. I don't remember if we mentioned this in the last mock draft, but if you draft a tight end relatively early like Kittle, I don't think you need to draft 2 tight ends. I didn't even draft 2 tight ends with Freiermuth. Maybe you would want to. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks left. 6 picks like a touchdown. Is that what, I don't even know. What did Flight say in that video? You know what I'm talking about? Maybe you do. If you don't, you don't. Quarterback is a part of my mind here, but I'm just going to get Sam Darnold on the low at the end, so we're not going to need to do that here. So we're just going to go receiver, and again, just hunting upside back here. We're going to go with Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars. This guy is getting every positive report you could possibly get over the last couple of days. Like anything you would think that you could say positively about a wide receiver has been said about Brian Thomas Jr. He's been so good. It's like if you've ever seen back in the day when like a guy would have a concert and he's singing and some chicks are just throwing their bras and panties onto the stage. That's what the beat reporters are doing for Brian Thomas Jr. They're basically sucking him off with their words. It's incredible. Brian Thomas, Geno Smith, and Ezekiel Elliott. So we're to go ahead and go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers, just 2 running backs. We need another running back, 100% with Javonte. And we're going to go not with Devin Singletary, who's kind of the safer bet. Normally we would go probably Brian Robinson in this range for the upside, but we already have Jaden Daniels. We already have McLaurin. I'm not going to sit here and wax poetically that the Commanders are going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. So we're going to reach a little bit, maybe be available in the next round, but we're going to go ahead and get Jerome Ford, F-150. That's a guy who, if Nick Chubb doesn't heal correctly, which I think is very possible, right? If he's, again, heal correctly might be the wrong term. I'm as much of a doctor as Manuel Ferreira, so I guess I don't technically know what the correct term there would be. But what I really mean is, sure, he'll heal correctly, but maybe he's just not ready is what I really mean. Not ready to go early on. And then maybe he's not ready to go week 8, week 9, and they're kind of easing him in. And then with the line the Browns have, just Jerome Ford could be solid. And even if he's not a whole season winner, if he's solid enough for a couple of weeks, still very beneficial. After Jerome Ford, F-150, Devin Singletary, Jameson Williams, Cole Kmet, Brian Robinson Jr., Blake Corum, Trey Benson, related to Freddie Benson from iCarly, Magic Mike Williams, Romeo Dobbs, Tyler Lockett, Chase Brown, Cortland Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Zach Charbonnet, Khalil Shakira. Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. Hopefully that didn't get me strike down for singing just like Shakira. Jacoby Myers, Chuba Hubbard, Xavier, somebody touch my Leggett, Cade Otton, and Amshahid Rashid Shaheed. Let's go running back again here because we're getting low on the running backs here. Let's go Dobbins for the upside of being potentially the RB1 in LA with the Chargers team. You know, is going to run a lot. Kendre Miller's kind of off my board. Joshua Palmer. The high upside pick here is Jalen Wright. Let's be honest, like, if something happened to Raheem Mostert or A-Chain, Jalen Wright is another one of those guys. Track star. Now, did he actually run track off the top of my head? I don't fucking know. But just fast as it gets. Like, you watch his tape, that dude's running like Barry Allen. So the upside's there. But we're going to go with Rico Dowdle, who could be the running back 1 on the Cowboys, whereas, like, Jalen Wright on paper is the running back 3 on the team. Like, guaranteed the running back 3. So this is a very solid team. I like how we built this squad. We've got a bunch of interchangeable RB2s. Hopefully Kyron stays healthy. And then we got some solid wide receivers here. This team I like better than the last team, if I'm being honest with you. After Rico Dowdle, Gabe Davis, there's a couple kickers and defenses in here as well. Adonai Mitchell, Luke Musgrave, Jahan Dotson, who's just getting so much negative PR. Like, I thought he was going to be good this year, potentially, as a late round upside throw. But it's like, there's talks like maybe he gets cut. Now, again, don't believe everything the beat reporters say, but that's kind of worrisome. Ty Chandler, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Wright, Jaleel McLaughlin, Taysom Hill, and Antonio Gibson. So now we're going to go kicker and defense because we didn't draft a third quarterback. But what I'll tell you here is on Sleeper, you don't have to draft a kicker or a defense on Sleeper. So this is where we would go down and draft Sam Darnold. But since Bryce Young's still available, we're going to just take Bryce Young for that upside. So if you're in a league that doesn't make you take a kicker and a defense, just draft the extra options. And then say we get to week 1, shit's not looking sweet for J.K. Dobbins. He's somehow banged up like he always is. Then you cut him. You're going to have to make a decision on one of these guys to cut, but that's okay. And then instead of going kicker here, we're going to forego kicker because, again, we can get these extra stashes. And we're just going to stash another running back here because I think the running backs are great for this because if something happens between now and the start of the season and say Joe Mixon goes down, right? Now you have Dameon Pierce, the running back 1 on the Texans. Say Rachaad White goes down, Bucky Irving, the running back 1 on the Bucks, and you got him for free. For free! Breece Hall goes down, you get Braylon Allen, so we'll take Braylon Allen here. That's a great strategy. If you don't have to draft a kicker or defense, don't draft them. Pick them up before the season starts. So, to recap our team here, we got Jalen Hurts, Kyron Williams, Javonte Williams, Marvin Harrison, Nico Collins, George Kittle, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels. Our bench is Chris Godwin, Brian Thomas Jr., Jerome Ford, J.K. Dobbins, Rico Dowdle, Bryce Young, and Braylon Allen. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. While you're down there, make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. We'll be back tomorrow with another banger of a video. And starting tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow actually because it's Sunday and I'm probably going to be sleeping late because the UFC is on. But Monday, we'll start 2 videos a day. Love you guys. Have a great one. Goodbye. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Goodbye.